Hi, I'm Christoph. Welcome to this demo of Dungeons of Dreadrock 2, The Dead King's Secret. A few notes before we start. Dungeons of Dreadrock is a narrative-driven puzzle adventure and you're looking at episode 2 here. This episode will launch Switch first for marketing reasons, but it's originally a mobile game, so I'm going to showcase at least the controls directly on an iPad for you before we head on to a screen recording.
You step into a grand hall with several passages running off in all directions. This appears to be the ancient courtyard.
Mobile controls are implemented with a virtual orthogonal joystick that dynamically repositions with your finger. The courtyard acts as a narrative center point and introduces a small Metroidvania element, as players need to find out which passage to take and how. We just found out that it's not that simple to follow the ferryman. Luckily, dying never implies much of a penalty and we can keep exploring the courtyard. I will ignore the notes and other narrative elements for now and instead pick up this skull. And I'm going to plug it back on this headless skeleton. I can now interact with it and open a dialogue, and it tells me that the stone guardians need to face each other.
A rune shaped like an hourglass marks the floor here. It is called Shan in the ancient tongue. And according to your research, the crown of wisdom should be buried in this section of the dungeon.
Most units in the game are not just plain enemies. Instead, they follow a specific behavior that the player will need to explore and then use to overcome obstacles. Golems are passive units that will only wake when hit. They will then hit back and advance one field before they go back to sleep. The game embraces short session mobile gaming and it does a lot to help managing players' expectations and giving them directions.
Someone was here before you and tried to make sense of the place.
Here we find a map that gives the players an idea of what to expect and helps them track their progress through the game, which includes 5 boss fights against a dragon, a giant spider, the Watcher that was blinded in episode 1, a many-eyed creature whose name I'm not gonna say, and finally the Dead King's ghost. If you ever had to market a puzzle game, you will know how hard it is to create a video that shows the fun of encountering a puzzle and solving it. Explaining a puzzle is a bit like explaining a joke, but I'm gonna need to show you what the game is all about, so now that you understood the structure of the game, let's check out its meat, which are puzzles of all types and variations. This room is called the Chamber of Bones. To solve it, you'll need to arrange the remains of a body in the correct pattern on an altar. Once you're finished, however, you'll probably be taken aback because nothing happens. You will then realize that there are unlit torches in this level, and you will wonder whether your newly acquired Fireburst skill will be able to light them. Like many other puzzles in the game, this one was not designed to be difficult, but to be satisfying instead. After this relaxing, slow-paced puzzle, let's take a look at one that features more of an action challenge that involves timing and a bit of skills. You enter this level with 3 stones you gathered earlier and they allow you to trigger sequences of closing trapdoors. However, you will soon realize that it's necessary to trigger all 4 plates in this level to not only reach the iron gate but also open it beforehand. After some consideration, you'll realize that you might be able to pick up the second stone again when you run past it and throw it on the remaining upper plate in the midst of the next sequence. And this is exactly the user experience I am designing for. You encounter a problem, you take a moment to come up with a plan, and then you'll have to try and see whether your plan allows for execution. This next level is called Symmetry. We can find 3 stones in the rubble, and players will obviously use them to trigger both floor plates at the same time. You'll often have to think outside the box, and in case you get stuck, the game has hints for you. The first hint reminds us that the level's name was Symmetry. The second hint points out there are stones hidden in the rubble. And the third hint tells us to throw 2 stones to the right. This incremental help system gives you the chance to find something you might just have overlooked and still solve the puzzle on your own. Or if you really don't get it, you can follow the hints until the end. So after saying that the puzzles were the meat of this game, I guess it makes sense to say that we need to keep the player hungry for more. And that's where the story comes in.
And you settled.
The story is narrated in tiny bits and pieces. Every few levels or so you might rest at a campfire to have a vision that lets you learn more about your past, your mission, or your relationship to the High Priestess, the Holy Mother. In your dreams you will learn more about the mysterious wizard who paved your way by leaving helpful advice in the form of tiny scribbled notes in the dungeon. You will sometimes be able to eavesdrop on the dead king's minions, and sometimes you will engage in dialogues with NPCs. As already mentioned, each section ends with a boss fight that will grant you an item which will change the way you think about your environment.
You're not sure what you expect. On a stone altar behind the waterfall, a pile of crumbled rocks is all that remains of this sitting on a velvet cushion. You find a golden...
Fire, for example, will let you burn down wooden doors, light torches, or burn down wall banners that might then reveal a secret. Once you kill the Watcher and gain the Bat Idol, you can change to Bat Shape. This will lose you the ability to trigger floor plates or carry items, but you can still attack small enemies and even access areas you weren't aware existed. Once you kill the 4th boss and place its eye on the top of your staff, you will finally be able to petrify and unpetrify enemies. This gives you the power to unpetrify Eleanor, whose statue you've discovered when you first entered the courtyard, and who will then accompany you so that you get to play the 5th and final section cooperatively with an AI unit. Finally, you will find the king's relic and defeat his ghost form, and you will then have the choice. You can complete the mission for the Order of the Flame and use the town portal the Holy Mother opens for you and travel back to the Tower of Light to deliver the dead king's relic. Or you can choose to destroy the ring and thus rob the king of his immortality. You can then kill his ghost simultaneously with the sister killing his body at sunrise in episode 1 and thus save the siblings' lives. And that's it. Music in the game is performed by Rachel Hardy, Clamavi de Profundis and Elio Tordo. Chiptunes music was done by Bob JT and Juhani Chunkala. Just like episode 1, which has now 3 million mobile downloads, it will offer 100 levels and an average time to finish of approximately 6 hours. It comes localized in 18 languages, this time with voiceovers narrated in English, German and Japanese, and it will be offered in Google Play Pass. I hope I was able to capture the scope and soul of the game in these 10 minutes. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and maybe see you at Gamescom.